And one thing about this farmers market makes it unique, no one goes away hungry. So say sometimes people come up and they say they don't have any money. So we say, you know what, take a bag and feed your family. Because we feel that fresh fruit is a human right. So the question people ask me all the time, like, how did I get started in farming? And I try to tell them, first of all, my parents weren't farmers, my grandparents weren't farmers. So I grew up in New York City, concrete jungle, in the projects, moved to the Bronx and had a backyard, and I decided that I wanted to grow some food. So there was 4 things I wanted to grow. I had to grow collard greens, tomatoes, eggplant, and peppers. And what really got me hooked was a tomato, because back in the day, tomato was pink, had no flavor. And so when I put the seed in the ground and I saw this tomato, which was on a vine, and it was red, and I bit into it, it changed my world.
I started a little differently. I'm also from the Bronx, as you know, and did not grow up on a farm or with any family members that I know of, no immediate family members who were farmers. But I went to an herbal shop and I was recommended a plant for something, and it kind of just was like, oh wow, I could actually, like, plants are medicine. This was like a really, like, a shift. When I was looking for like which community garden to join, or like who was also doing community gardening in the Bronx, all you have to look up is urban farming in the Bronx, and you're obviously like the first person that comes up. So I feel like this doesn't happen to you because you're Karen Washington and you've been in the game for so long. But are people still coming to your spaces trying to tell you how to do things?
You know, I try to tell people, people always want to come into a neighborhood, especially when it's a low income neighborhood. They have this thing like, they're the savior complex.
Right.
And then don't get me wrong, the intention may be well intended. I'm not denying people that want to come in to look at communities and try to help. But I try to tell people, first of all, if you're going to come into the community, you need to ask, what are the resources that you can bring to help the community? That's number one. And number two, you need to ask the community, what is it that they want instead of what they need? Because when you ask a person what they need, it comes from a position of deficit. When you ask a community what they want, it comes from a position of power. For so long, people were calling our communities food deserts. And it's like, wait a second, I had to call my homies up in Philly and Detroit, like, we live in a desert?
Right.
Heck no. It's a political construct that's being really used to just brand a certain community. And the fact is that we don't live in a desert. We have a lot of food. We don't have healthy food options. That's our biggest problem. And so I coined the term food apartheid because I want to bring in a conversation race, the difficult conversation that we have when we talk about race issues. Unless people understand where the healthy food goes to and where the unhealthy processed food, junk food, cheap food ends up. We all know this. It's not rocket science. We all know where the crappy food ends up. And so it's up to you, and young people, everybody, to take a stand and say, we got to stop this madness. If we're really going to change the food system, then we have to be authentic and real in systemic racism.
We have more candy, and we have more liquor stores, more fast food. I have kids, when I used to work with high school kids, like, miss, I want to eat healthy, but where I'm gonna eat healthy? Like, I would love to eat healthy, miss. Like, why should our kids or anyone have to leave the neighborhood to get fresh food anyway? So which is why community gardens are so amazing, because people are like, okay, I don't want to be completely, dependent on this supermarket.
If you look at the word agriculture, I think what gets lost is culture. And when we're in our garden, we talk about our culture. We feel free to talk about where we've come from, our ancestors. And I think that's really, really important. We're able to grow our own food that's ethnically appropriate. I think that's really, really important, because you can't go to the local store and sometimes get the Popolo, Papiche, Tomatillas, and stuff like that. But you can grow that in our community garden. And in New York City, we have over 400 community gardens, and we have school gardens. And I think that as long as I have a breath in my body, we have to make sure that there are green spaces for the next generation. We're fighting development. Development is happening all over. And so we've got to make sure that we can maintain these spaces, because this is where education happens. It's where kids can put a seed in the ground and see something grow, where you can grow food that is healthy, that you can't get in a textbook, that you can't get at a grocery store. So for me, maintaining these spaces and also trying to grab as much land as we can to continue these spaces because, like I said, development is knocking the door.
But going back to what you were saying about seeing the kids put the seed in the ground, I feel like that is the best thing ever. They put the seed in last week and then they come and then the bean like it's sprouted, or even just like, and then it's like, oh, those are my beans. Now they're like constantly checking on it, and it's just like a whole different connection to, like you said, to food, to ourselves, to our families. You know, in the South Bronx, we're so blessed. There are a lot of kids from different countries in Africa. It's funny, like I feel like Black Americans or people of color here carry a lot of shame, right? Like you were just saying, around being in the land, and all we hear about is us as slaves growing food. And it's like, yeah, but we were forced to do that job for a reason. Like we were forced to do that here because we were getting it in back home, and people saw that and forced us to do it here. And then we have the folks from Ghana and Sierra Leone and the Gambia who are embarrassed to show off the skills that they have because they left home to come here for a better life. And I'm looking at them like, please tell me everything you know, because what you're shying away from is how I want to live my life.
And what really got me was about 2 years ago, I was at a conference, and after I was leaving the conference, this woman and her 7-year-old girl, child walks up to me, and they said, can I take a picture? Can I take a picture with you? And I said, sure, sure. And then she said, you know what my daughter said to me? I'm going to get emotional. Let me stop.
Oh, God, I felt it too.
She said to me, you know what she said? She said, Mom, when I grow up, I want to be a farmer. And the tears started flowing because for the first time, a 7-year-old Black child looked at farming as something to be proud of. And so I always talk about the ancestors because I always had this inner voice that the ancestors would always say, never forget us, never forget us. And I think the ancestors are finally going to be able to rest a little bit better because now they see so many young people like yourself, holding on to land, coming back to the land, wanting to grow food. So I'm just so proud of you and the work that you've done, and I see how you've grown, and I can feel like, I can rest, I can go on into retirement.
We will see. I would love to see that. We'll see. We all just want to hold you down the way that you hold us all down, really. So it's been quite the honor.
I love you.
I love you too, Miss Karen.